Hello everyone, welcome to another Piesta's book reviews. Today I'm going to talk about the latest Cory Doctorow book called Attack Surface. It's the third book in the series of the Little Brother, and I think the second one is called Homeland. I had read both of them, and I liked Little Brother better. Homeland kind of drifted off in the middle, and I wasn't as thrilled about it. I had kind of forgotten about the story, but I saw that Cory Doctorow was launching this Kickstarter campaign to fund the audiobook version of his book. He had some issues with Audible about DRM and that kind of stuff. He's very evangelist person in terms of DRM and intellectual property control, that kind of stuff. Anyways, I jumped on that Kickstarter. I got the audiobook form. I don't usually read stuff on audiobooks. This was like third, fourth book that I read in audiobook. It's definitely not my favorite way of reading them. I'm not very used to it yet, but it's decent if you manage to find the right frame of mind to just be focused on listening to something. It works out in the end. Anyways, first, I'm going to talk about another short story that he wrote called Force Multiplier. Is book 2.75 of the series. It was like a very short story in the same universe, and it was bundled with the whole thing. That's why I also heard it, and I also will talk about it now. It's pretty much just a short story about data theft and data protection, and how certain laws can be abused to allow people to have more access to your data and make your life miserable or pretend that they are you and get information about you, which is nothing new, but there are a lot of small gimmicks that you can use to get that kind of information and abuse that kind of information in one way or another, which is very important to be covered about. So it makes sense that it had a short story just talking about these kind of issues and what you can do about them. So moving on to Attack Surface. Attack Surface was pretty good. It was. Um, I'm not sure if I don't like Little Brother, the original one, a bit better than this one. This one was just different. It was more hacker based in terms of developing, explaining technical details of how a hacker works or how spying works, how certain software can be used either to gain access to someone else's computer and sniff their network, to build data models, pattern recognition to detect people and interactions between people, social cascades, I think it's what Cory Doctorow calls them. Um, and also a nice insight into how you can protect yourself from those kind of attacks. So it was very well written in that regard. The first chapters in particular, it really felt like you really got into the vein of things. The things that he talks about are things that are actually real. This kind of software and issues really exist. So it's not completely made up, which is quite refreshing because most of the people who talk about cyberpunk or technology, anything futuristic, tend to make up some of these things. And there's this whole lore that when you have in the movies a person hacking something, usually there's like a visual effect of you entering a tunnel and accessing some random doors. That's not how hacking works. That's not how you get access to another computer. It's refreshing that you get to actually read someone writing about things that are how they're actually done, how they actually sort of work. So yeah, that part I really enjoyed. Um, it has a lot of relevant insights on how to not be spied upon, which is also quite interesting, especially if you are a bit paranoid and would like to protect yourself a bit better. The story itself has a lot of twists and turns, which is quite good. I particularly like the flashbacks where we found out the history of Masha and how she got into the business of developing this kind of spyware technology. little bit of an insight into those kind of companies. So that side, or it's probably a little made up and conceived. I don't think he had real references of how things are really run. The type of companies that do that kind of contract work. But it was still very interesting to read about. The book also had a lot of action into it, situations with riots, mayhem happening, traveling around, that kind of stuff, which made it interesting and more of a. I don't want to call it thriller, but I guess it piques your interest on what's going to happen next, especially when it goes back and forth in terms of timeline. You kind of want to go back to the present to figure out what's going to happen next, or vice versa. You want to go back to the past and figure out what was happening in the past. So I kind of like that, but I like those kind of books. So for me, it was business as usual. I do like Cory Doctorow's writing style. Sometimes it's a bit too cheesy for my taste, but overall, it's pretty good. Even the slapstick humor is pretty interesting and rewarding to read. So I like him as an author. I have several books of him, and this one filled the shoes well in that regard. Other things that I want to talk about the book. The most relevant message of the book overall ended up being, and this was a welcome surprise for me while I was reading, is that not all problems are solved with technology. People from the technology world, and I'm included in that because I'm an informatics engineer, we tend to start seeing a problem, even when it's a people's problem. We try to solve it with tech. We make an app that fixes that or tries to fix that, instead of addressing the real problem, which most often cases, and the case in point in this particular book, is more about people and not really problems. The way that you overtake a corrupt dictatorship is not through tech, it's through people. People need to do the change, and technology can be a catalyst for that. But technology in itself is not good or evil. It's what you do with the technology that becomes good or evil. So technology is a tool. And in that regard, the ending of the book really emphasized that aspect, and that we should not despair when we are completely under spy, under control. Not under control physically, but under control that random actors can know everything that we see and do if they really wanted to. And this has been known for many years, that all our stuff, all our social network, our viewing profiles, they're sold through Facebook and Google, and we get targeted adverts in response, and they just use our data and without our consent most of the times. Anyways, what was I talking about? Usually the problem are the people, not the technology. Technology can be either good or evil. We need to be very careful how technology is used, and it needs to be regulated properly. And the people who are involved in regulating the technology need to know how it can be used and what can be done with it to make sure that we have room to explore the technology to its full potential without it being used to diminish other people's right to whatever they should be doing. So it's a politics game, and it's a policy game, which is a bit depressing because most of us know that it's really hard for something that we seem to think should be done to become a reality by some politician. Like, the politician has the power to change policies, but it's really hard for us, the common mortal, the common voter, to make our voices heard to the point where a politician will enact upon it or react upon it and actually bring those things into fruition. They need to have a personal interest to bring upon that change. And it's really hard to get people to do those kind of things or to fill out those roles. Not saying that politicians' life is all full of corrupt people. I'm sure a lot of politicians just have too much stuff on their plate and they need to focus on priorities. Most of the priorities of politicians are known to be monetary gain or power gain of some sort. Lobbies influence things a lot more than they should, because our society shouldn't be run by who has the most money. It should be run by people who want what is best for the society itself, for all the people, for the future, trying to bring a positive change. And yeah, that's the main. I think we are kind of missing a revamp of political democracy, of the way that our voices are heard. But yeah, that's a political issue. Like, as we all know, democracy is the less worse of all the other systems. So it's not perfect, and there are a lot of other people researching other alternative ways of government. We can all agree that dictatorship is definitely worse than that, and that's pretty much the alternative we have. We had a democracy, a republic, or a dictatorship, or a monarchy, if you want to go back to the feudal system, which I don't think anyone does at this point. So yeah, that's the hard bit to change in human life. It's also a lot about corruption and being more transparent. I think transparency would be the right solution for these kind of issues. But I'm already speaking on my own personal beliefs here, not about the book itself. The book focuses on this issue of technology and government spying on you, and how we should be learning about the technology, and we should be using the technology to bring about changes in policies and in politics, and not get doomed by being by the technology overwhelming us. So yeah, main message of the book: bring about proper policies that regulate technology properly. Don't over-regulate technology, but regulate it in due time. I think most of the issue that we have with the current technology is that when it comes to being regulated, it's already past its abuse, or it's over-regulated because some lobby demands that, and that it's breaking their financial gain if it doesn't get regulated like that. So yeah, that's the main takeaway that I got from the book, and a lot of food for thought on how to move on, how we can improve society from that point forward. But talking about the book overall, I enjoyed reading the book. It was an easy, fast read to do. It was nice to go back to the world of Little Brother, and yeah, get to know more about Masha. She's a really cool character. I enjoyed the character and the interactions, and yeah, good book. Recommend it. Go read it. That's all I have for you today. Let me know if you already read or heard the book before. Post your comments below. See you next time. Bye bye, everyone. Take care.